In this section, I want to try out what we've learned by getting a start on our website project. I'll open up the folder here at the bottom, and you can see we have several pages to build up. The home page of most sites is named index.html, so let's start with that one first. I'll just open it up inside my text editor. And we can see that all we have here is text, and we have no HTML content at all. So the first thing we need to do is make this into a proper HTML page by adding the base code. Up at the top, I'll start by adding our doc type tag. Remember, this one starts off with an exclamation point. And we simply add the HTML attribute to it to declare our page as an HTML5 document. Then we need a head tag. Remember, this sets our page up. And inside of it, I'll add a meta tag, and we'll use the charset attribute to declare the character set we want to use. And I'll set that equal to UTF-8. And then every page needs a title, so we'll add a title tag. For this page, I'll make it the same as the header, all about coffee. And now we need to close that title tag, and of course close our head tag up too. Now remember, our meta tag is a self-closer, so if you want to, you can add the slash at the end. It's totally up to you. Down below that, we're going to want to include a body tag for our visible content. And since I want to see all this content on the page, I'll close my body tag after that. And then the last thing we'll do is we want to add an HTML tag that has the head and the body tag inside of it. So I'll go right up here to the top and add in my HTML tag. And I'll go down to the bottom and we'll close it on up. Now for the rest of the pages we're going to work on, just to save some typing time, I've already added the base content. And just make sure that you put it on every single HTML page you create. Well, now that we have the basic code set up, we can go about formatting the text. You can see that the page starts out with a title, so I'll give that an H1 tag, and it will serve as our main header. Of course, we'll close the tag after that header. And then you can see we've got a lot of different paragraphs down below. For most of these, I'm just going to use a paragraph tag. I'll start with the second one here, and I want that on each one of the paragraphs below it. We'll close them all while we're at it so we don't forget. And now we can go and look at this first paragraph here at the top. The only reason I didn't mark it as a paragraph is because it's special. It's actually a quote about coffee from Jerry Seinfeld. So instead of using paragraph tags for this one, why don't we use the block quote tag? I'll go ahead and close that tag up here at the end of the quote. And we'll leave the author of the quote outside, since it's neither a paragraph or a quote in this case. Now the last thing I really want to do here is set up the sections of my page. Most of our paragraphs down here are an introduction about the rest of the site, so we can group them together as one section. I'll do that by adding a tag at the beginning, and I'll go down to the last paragraph and close that section tag. I left the quote up here separate because it's not really an introduction to the site, it's more of a little aside thing that we have added into the page. So let's mark that up with an aside tag. And I'll put it down below the author's name so that all that information is grouped together. And now we've added just enough code so that our page is broken up, readable, and we have sections for the content that we've got included. Now the last thing I want to do is we have an image that we can set up on this page. I'll go over to the images folder, which we've got included in our website project. And these images have all been prepared and set up as JPEGs or PNGs, so they're all ready to use. For our intro page, I just want this nice coffee cup picture here. You'll notice it's called coffee-cup.png, and let's also point out that it's in the images folder. So let's go back to our page and set it up. I'd like to include it with the rest of our section content, so I'll just go to the section tag, and right underneath we'll add an IMG tag. We need to set up the source, and I'll set that equal to the file name in quotes. Remember, we need to have a path to the file, and since our images folder is in the same location as our index file, we'll start there. Images / so that we open the folder, and then the file name. And this one's a PNG. Now I'll use the alt attribute since we know we want to include some information about this, and I'll set that equal to just a description of the picture. A cup of coffee. And I also want to set up the file size. To find that out, I can either open that up in an image processor, or I'll just go to the Images folder, and here in Windows, if I roll over it, it tells me the file type and the dimensions. This one's 128 pixels by 128 pixels, so we'll just include that with our width and height attributes. Remember, that's really only so that our page loads as fast as it can. Finally, for our image tag, it's a self-closer, so I'll add a slash at the end, and then the closing bracket. And now we're done with our index page. I'll just save it here, and let's go back out to the website project folder so I can double-click and open it up in the browser. Now, it's not quite there yet. We're going to be adding some style to it, but we do have all of our content separated. You can see the block quote is indented, my image is included, and all the paragraphs are readable. So we've got a decent start. For this set of lessons, I want to set up 3 more pages and just prepare their content. We'll be doing the brewing page, the grinding page, and the roasting page. So let's just start up here with brewing. I'll open that up in my text editor. And as you can see, we've got the base code already added for us. I can see we've got a heading at the top. Then we have a subheading with a couple of paragraphs. And then in the content, we've got a list of different methods to brew coffee. That's followed by a subheading on each section and several paragraphs describing each brewing method. So we've got a bunch to set up, but it's the same tags we've been using already. I'll start up here with an H1 tag and a closer for it. And then we'll set up our subheading here with an H2 tag. And that way our viewers will be able to identify it as a subheading. We've got lots of paragraphs, so let me go ahead and set them all up at once. I'll add a paragraph tag here, and we'll just copy it so we can place the rest of them down the page. Notice I'm skipping all the subheads. And now that I've got all those in, let's make sure we close them so we don't forget. Now that we have all of our paragraphs set up, let me go ahead and set up the H tags for the individual sections down here. Now I'm really going to be doing 2 things. Each one of these areas with a subhead is a section of information that we can group together. So for each one of these sections, I'm going to add a section tag, and then I'll use the next heading tag on our list, which in this case is an H3 tag. I'll close that heading tag, and down at the end of the section, I'll close the section tag as well. And now we want to do that for each one of the sections. I'll use copy and paste so it goes a little bit faster. And I'll do the headings first. We've got another H3 tag here, another for filtration methods, and the last one here for pressure. We'll close all of those. And you can see by doing this in groups, it helps to make sure that I don't leave any open tags anywhere. And then the last thing I'll do is set up the section tags for the last 2 sections as well. We'll start one here at steeping, and we'll end it. Start one for filtration, end that one, and then set up the last one for pressure. Once again, ending it. Now we've got our content all grouped up, and of course the paragraphs are going to divide it so it's readable. There's really only one more thing I want to do, and that is I want to set up this area right here. You'll notice without tags on our web page, these will just appear one after the other. So let's use a list structure so that they each get their own line. They're not in any particular order here, so I'll just use an unordered list, which is a UL tag. I'll close that UL tag at the end. And then we'll set up our LI tags for each list item. Once again, I want to make sure all those list item tags get closed. And now we've got our content all set up. Let's save our change and we'll see how it looks. I'll just double click to open it up in the browser. And now you can see instead of one big block at the top, we've got our heading, subhead, and our sub-subheadings. All of our sections are broken out, and all of our paragraphs are readable, including our nice list up here of the items that we're going to be talking about. That page is looking good, so let's take a look at our grinding page next. I'll open that up in my text editor. And here you can see we've just got a few paragraphs about grinding and a list of different grinding types. So we've got almost the same kind of tags to set up. Once again, I'll do an H1 for my first heading on the page and close it. We've got a few paragraphs, so let's set those up next. Of course, closing our paragraphs so we don't forget. Down here, I'll close the paragraph underneath the list so that that's grouped together. And lastly, let's go ahead and set up our list, which looks like another unordered one. We'll add our UL tag at the beginning and the end. And then our list item tags again. Now this page also has an image we can use, so let me go over and take a look at the images folder once again. And you'll notice we have a nice old-fashioned coffee grinder picture here. First I'll point out that it's a JPEG format, and we'll look at the name, Coffee-Grinder. And when I roll over it, we can see that the image is 444 pixels by 516 pixels. So we've got the width and height that we need. Let's go set all that up. I'll go back to the page, and we'll put the image right up here at the top before our first paragraph. Now I'm going to want to use a caption with this one, so I'm going to go ahead and start off with the figure tags. Then I'll add in my image tag, starting with the source attribute. This image is once again in the images folder, which is right next to our HTML file. So we'll start with images, and then a slash to say open the folder. Then the file name, coffee-grinder. And we'll make sure to use the right file format, which is JPEG. I'll set up the width, which is 444, and then the height, which is 516. Now after that, we would normally use the alt attribute, but I'm going to add a caption. So we'll skip it for now, and I'll just use a slash and a close bracket to end my image tag. And next I want to add in a fig caption tag. And we'll just put in here for a title, an old-fashioned coffee grinder. Close up our fig caption tag, and close up our figure tag as well. Now on the other pages we marked out different sections, and that's because we had an aside or we had several other sections. If we take a look at the content on this page, it's all really one big section. And in this case, a section tag isn't really going to do us any help, so I'm just going to leave it out completely. Now that finishes off this page, so let's take a quick look at it in the browser too. Here we can see our header at the top, there's our fig caption underneath the image, and all of our paragraphs and lists are looking nice. Now that leaves us with just one page to work on, the roasting page. Well, now that leaves us with just one page left to work on for this section, the roasting page. I'd like you to use this page to test out your new skills. I'll just open up the page in the text editor, and I'll go over the content you need to format with you. Then I'd like you to stop the video and add in the code that we've learned in this section of the lessons. Then you can restart the video and we'll go over together how it should look and what code you needed to include. First, you can see that there are no HTML tags to start with, so you'll have to add the basic page code. Here we have some text you can use for the page title, and then the same text you can use for a heading on the page. After that, I've got 4 titles that I'd like you to use as fig captions for images. The pictures you need to use are all over in the image folder and they're ready to go. We've got coffee berries, fresh coffee beans, and roasted coffee beans, and finally an image of a commercial roaster. I'd like you to set up the top 3 images as an aside, and then create a section that contains the image and the rest of the paragraphs. Now go ahead and pause the video and you can work on your code. Okay, now if you've coded your page right, it should look something like this in the browser. You can see my heading at the top, our side images with their fig captions, followed by our larger image with a fig caption, and the rest of the paragraphs on the page. Here I have my finished code page. As you can see, I've got the basic code at the top, including the page title, and the opening body tag is followed by the heading. Here we've got our aside with 3 figures and captions. And then after that we open up a section, starting off with a figure and its caption. The rest of the paragraph's all marked up. And then we close the section, body, and HTML tags here at the bottom. Feel free to pause the video again and check if you need to correct anything. Well, now we have a good start on using HTML5, and we've got a decent start to our website project as well. We know how to set up a basic HTML page, and also how to work with some basic text content and images. In the later sections, we'll expand on all this, but so far we've mainly been talking about the structure of the content. In the next section, I'll go over the basics of using CSS to add some style to your pages.